Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 61, An Offer She Can't Refuse. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. Fran begins dating Gracie's friend's handsome, wealthy, divorced father and is impressed by his courting her with his expensive gifts. On their first date, however, she learns that under his charm is a secret. He is in the mob. Afraid for her life, she wants to break up with him, but cannot figure out how to do so until Maxwell steps in as her knight in shining armor and hires Tony, the handsome, wealthy, divorced father of Gracie's friend, as an understudy in his new show. Meanwhile, Brighton found Maggie's diary and made good use of the local Kinkos to photocopy the more salacious entries. He promises not to show the excerpts to their father, but only if she agrees to be his slave for a week. Fran saves Maggie from this indignity by providing her a VHS of Brighton French kissing Maggie's old Lisa Simpson doll, putting the kids back on an even playing field. Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
Nope, you've got it.
Thank you. Would you like to take us to scene one?
Yes, so we open up in the Sheffield living room, and to me, it looked like it was still kind of decorated for the holidays.
It was.
And Gracie is there playing the violin along with the little boy who we haven't, we don't know who he is yet. And if you have captions on, it is captioned playing bad music.
Did you make
Fran
out what the sound, what the bad music was supposed to be?
Yeah. Well, I didn't write it down, but it was definitely like a familiar piece.
It was
And
Mary Had a Little Lamb.
yeah, yes. And Fran is sitting at the chair on the phone, and Niles comes in and he's like, "You can't possibly hear anything over this racket." And Fran's like, "Yeah, that's why I called Ma." Um, and then during a pause in the practice, Fran asks the little boy, who we find out is named Frankie, "Frankie, when are you coming back to practice or something?" And he says Thursday. So immediately she says into the phone, "Call you Thursday, Ma." Um, so then Fran has a little conversation also with Gracie, saying like, maybe she should take up the piano. That way she can like meet Billy Joel's daughter. And Gracie's kind of confused, like, why would I want to meet Billy Joel's daughter? And Fran points out that Billy Joel is recently divorced, sensitive, and Jewish. Gracie needs to be not so selfish.
Right. To not think only about herself, miss.
Yes. And then also at that point, Fran also offers to put away Gracie's violin so it doesn't get broken, but then she kind of looks at it contemplatively, like, oh, hmm.
Yeah, like, maybe
Wouldn't
it
be a
wouldn't be
bad thing if it got broken.
exactly. It wouldn't be a shame.
Mm-hmm. And then we kind of pan over to in front of the staircase where Gracie is talking to Frankie, and she's telling him that he needs to practice more. To which he responds, like, "Watch it, like, or else I'll put cement.
Don't
My
tell
father
me,
will, yeah, don't
don't
tell me what to do, or I'll get my father to get you cement Mary Janes
to
or
put
something
you in a
like that."
pair of cement Mary Janes.
Yes. Um, and I think they go upstairs at that point.
Hmm.
So the doorbell rings. Fran answers it, and it is Mr. Tatori.
Yep.
I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. And so Fran's like, "Oh, Mr. Tatori," and he's like, "My friends call me Tony." And he's obviously kind of flirtatious, and Fran in response goes, "Oh, what does your wife call you?" And he
Hmm.
says, "I'm divorced." So she immediately goes, "I'm Fran."
Exactly.
So it turns out that they are both from Flushing. And Tony's amazed. You hardly have an accent. And Franz points out, I've been living in Manhattan for 2 whole years. I guess, I just kind of lost it along the way. And obviously, she has not lost her accent.
Yeah.
and but then she goes on to say, well, look at us, like you looking like $1 million, limos, and I'm in my boss's mansion.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, at that point, the kids kind of come downstairs, and um, Tony addresses his son as Cheech, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Come over, give your, you know, dad a hug." And he's like, "I'll cost you a 10." That's my boy, pulling out a 10 and giving it to him. And then Fran though is trying to, well, at this point, uh, Tony is saying, "Oh, we should get together for a play date again." And to the side, Fran kind of asks Gracie, like, "Oh, don't you want to get back, another play date with Frankie?" And Gracie says in response, Frankie broke Barbie's legs and stuck her in the back of the Barbie dream car. And so Brando is like, how about Friday? And then Tony clarifies, no, just between him and Fran. And she's like, we hardly know each other. Let's make it Thursday so we could get to know each other. Um, and he notes that she's a funny girl. He'll send some steaks. And they leave. And Fran kind of turns to Gracie. Oh, beef. Is he classy or what? So again, this opening scene, we're kind of establishing this whole connection with Tony. Uh, I know it was clear for me at the get-go what kind of life Tony leads, given how Frankie was behaving with Gracie. Um, but at this point, it seems that Fran's pretty clueless about it. Do you
Oh
have
yeah.
anything you want to add to this opening scene?
I guess my question for you is it classy for a guy to send you beef? Like I'm a vegetarian, so I wouldn't find that very classy or nor would I appreciate it.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not a vegetarian, but it would be a bit odd.
Okay, that's
First
why I was
thing,
asking. Because like I don't know, is that something normal
that's
that
not a thing that I'm aware of. Lovely listeners, if this is a thing in your area, let us know.
thank
Uh,
you. Thank you. We would
no,
appreciate that.
I have not seen that as like a first date. Let me send you some beef.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay,
So
that was my only question for you.
okay. Do you want to take us to scene two?
Sure. So we're in the living room and Brighton's sitting there with a book and Maggie is looking for something, becoming a little bit frantic. And Brighton says, looking for your diary. And it's like he's holding her book. And she says, give it back, you creep. And he says, all right, and tosses it to her. And everyone, including Maggie, realizes that was too easy. And so Brighton explains to her that, yes, while you were sticking your tongue in Peter Bidwell's mouth, I was sticking quarters into the copier at Kinko's. And obviously, Maggie's not thrilled with this and asks him, how much do you want? And Brighton gestures and says, look around, money I got. What I need is a personal slave. And Maggie refuses, saying that she is nobody's slave. And Brighton says, not according to page 12. Things I can't let Peter know I did with Jeff Connolly. Needless to say, Maggie is still unhappy and threatens to kill him and chases him out of the room. And I believe that's when Maxwell and Cece come in. And needless to say, Maxwell's also not happy. He's quite angry with Cece, asking her if she's insane. How could you tell our star that she could be replaced? And Cece says, well, Maxwell, anyone can be replaced. And Maxwell disagrees, saying, not Whoopi Goldberg in A Night with Whoopi Goldberg. Oh. And Cece tries to defend herself, explaining that Whoopi's demands were outrageous. She wanted her own makeup artist and hair designer. And I said, you can just damn well use who the rest of the cast is using. Cece, Maxwell points out, she is the rest of the cast. God, how can you cause me so much consternation? And of course, Fran's now in the room and she comments on that. Me, I think it's the banana bran muffins myself. Banana, bran, your colon's confused. And needless to say, that draws attention to her. And so she eventually says to Maxwell that she needs to take some time off, and that she needs to ask for some time off. I got to get off early on Thursday. I've got a date, which means I've got to gel, mousse, pluck, blend. Oh, I'll tell you, I'll be glad when this natural look is out. And so Maxwell decides to use this as a teachable moment, saying to Cece, so this is how you negotiate with someone who works with you, who wants something. Watch and learn. All right, Miss Fine, I'll let you off early on Thursday if you stay late on Sunday. To which Fran says, well, I can't stay late on Sunday, but I can start late on Sunday and work my regular hours Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday since you gave me Thursday off. And Maxwell's like, no, I didn't give you Thursday off. I just said you could leave early. And she's like, oh, all right, I'll leave early on Thursday, but I've still got Sunday off. And Maxwell's like, no, you're coming in late. Oh, all right. And she like walks away and she's done with him. And Cece asks Niles, how does she do that to him? And Niles says, oh, it's a female thing. You wouldn't understand. Well, at that point, the doorbell rings and Fran goes and gets it. And she, after she closes the door, we see she's holding this, as she puts it, a beautiful gift box. It's multicolored. I think it has fruit on it and a big bow. And Maxwell comes over and he thinks that it's for him. He thinks it's a big gift from the Tony committee because he made a fantastic speech to them the other night. And so Fran looks at the card and she says to him, well, it looks like I'll be bringing home a Tony before you do. And he's like, what? Who's Tony? And why is he sending you London broil? Because now they've opened the box and they find out that there are all these different cuts of meat in there. And, they're looking at it and Maxwell asks her, don't you wonder about a man lavishing you with expensive gifts? And her response is, yeah, where has he been my whole life? And so they're still looking at the meat, and Maxwell asks, what are you going to do with this side of beef? And Fran says, oh, I don't know. We'll probably go out to the theater, have a couple of drinks afterwards. She thought he was talking about the actual physical cut of meat. He was asking about the physical cut of meat. She thought he was asking about Tony, the guy who sent the meat. And then she takes,
I said, indeed.
Indeed, yes. And so she takes the box of meat and rushes off. Do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, you've got it.
All right. Would you like to take us to scene 3?
Yes. So Fran's kind of in the hallway near the living room looking at herself in the mirror. And I think it's appropriate to say a little bit how she's looking.
Absolutely.
So she's wearing, I would just call like a nice little black dress. Her hair parted to the side and, she's done up. And Maxwell and Niles walk in. And
do you want to comment a little bit more on the black dress?
I mean, so it's short. It has, is it like a sweetheart neckline?
It's a very low sweetheart neckline, and it has spaghetti straps.
Yeah. So like a very form-fitting, short. She looks great in it.
She does.
And that's what Maxwell comments. He comes in and notes how ravishing she looks. And she thanks him and says, I'm going out with Tony tonight. And immediately Maxwell changes his tune. In that, it's freezing outside. And Niles, of course, takes the opportunity to comment that it's the warmest December day since 1902. And Maxwell, again, is trying to hold up his excuse by saying, well, a cold front's coming in. And Niles is like, I didn't hear about that. And Maxwell says the new butler is bringing it.
Yep.
And Niles is then the new finally catches on that he's not helping. And again, along with like the whole freezing, whatever, friends like, don't worry, I have a coat. And so she takes out the coat closet, the smallest little, like, those little jackets that just come up to around like, it's around like your armpit. It's like around your breast level.
Yep.
So it's not a full coat. It's just literally like the top part.
It's like the sleeves and like that's it.
Exactly. Like enough to have sleeves on.
Yeah. But her chest is still exposed. Yes. And she has nothing over the rest of her dress, which for those of our wonderful listeners who've been to New York in December, she would be cold.
Yeah. And then again, she starts talking about Tony, how he's a cute, rich, has an adorable accent, loves musical theater. He's like nobody I've met before.
Yup.
Again, carrying on that classic, like, yes, you have.
Exactly.
Describe
She's
up.
too blind. She's too blind. She and Maxwell are both blind to each other.
Yes, exactly. And then it turns out, um, because Maxwell asks, well, what does he drive? A limo? Town car? Stretch. It's enormous.
Mhm.
Bigger than mine? Well, if you're so concerned about it, you can whip out yours out of the garage and have a limo measuring contest.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, obviously Maxwell is feeling some jealousy.
Mhm.
Not that he would ever be able to acknowledge that, I don't think at this point.
No. No.
Um, but he's comparing limos.
Mhm. And for those of us who were children when this aired, we would not see a possible double entendre there.
Exactly. Do you have anything to add to that scene?
I do not.
Can you take us to the restaurant?
Sure. So we're now at the restaurant. We're on the date with Fran and Tony, and they come into this restaurant. And I think there's some music playing, and they're greeted by the maitre d' saying, to Tony, "Never have I seen you with someone more beautiful, molto bene." And he kisses the top of Fran's hand, and she says, "Fine, Fran, fine," thinking he's asking what her name is, and that's not what he's doing.
Well, actually, I when he kisses her hand, he says bene, molto bene. So I think she's thinking that's his name because then she says fine, friend, fine.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes more sense. But I don't think molto bene means uh, is a name.
Nope.
I think it's very beautiful.
Yes,
I, I
very
took
good.
I took Spanish, not Italian, so it's just a guess.
Mhm.
But anyway, so apparently, like Tony's there, so the wait staff starts getting Mr. Tony's table ready, and we see that there was a couple basically just starting their dinner, and they get like whooshed off to the side. Their food gets taken, and they get pulled over to make room for Tony at Tony's table. And Fran comments on this. "Wow, you must be some big tipper." And Tony says, "The owner's in the family." And she's like, "Oh, a cousin? No relation," is the response. And then as they're sitting down and getting comfortable, Fran notices that, you know, would you look at those four guys? They were sitting right behind us at Beauty and the Beast. Is that a coincidence or what? And she, asked them like, what did they think of the show? And they're like, "Oh, the teapot was really funny." Um, and so then we like get to see Fran on an actual date. And so she asks Tony, "So tell me about yourself. What do you like to do besides dress like $1,000,000 and ride around in a limo?" Which is all I ever aspired to do, really. And he says, "It is not important what I do. It matters who I am." And so she takes the bait. "Who are you?" "It is not important who I am. It is important who I am with." And um, he kind of cuts her off and says, "Here, this is for you." And he gives her a jewelry box, and it's obviously a jewelry box. It's not like the small velvet ring box, but it's a longer like necklace box. And she says, "Oh, Tony, you shouldn't have." She opens it. "Yes, you should have." And it's a necklace with I think, a diamond solitaire. And he puts it around her neck, saying to her, "Fran, you are the most lovely creature I've ever set my eyes upon, except for my late mother. Poor woman, just couldn't keep her mouth shut." And
Mhm.
then Fran is clearly like enamored. She's very excited about the gift she has just been given. And she says, "Oh, Tony, would you excuse me, please? I've got to go powder my nose." And so she stands up, and those guys who were with them at Beauty and the Beast also stand up. And she's like, "You got to go too? Boy, this is getting freaky." And then she
Mhm.
goes into the bathroom. Do you consider the bathroom a separate scene or part of this scene?
I considered it a separate,
Okay, that's fine.
but okay.
Do you want to add anything before we go into the bathroom?
Nope. No,
All right.
that
Then take us to the bathroom.
yeah, so we are now in the bathroom, and again, as you mentioned, Fran's still like overjoyed by this gift. She as soon as she gets in, she takes out a disposable camera
Mhm.
and like quickly snaps a picture in the mirror. Like
Mhm.
doesn't even really like take the time to like set it up. She's just like quickly snaps it. And then she goes over to a payphone that is
Yup.
in the bathroom and she immediately calls Val's house and her mother answers and she asks if Val is home. Oh, why am I asking that? Of course, Val would be home. And she's starting to tell Val, like, you can't believe what he got me. But then we hear the sound of gunshots, like multiple
Yep.
coming from outside. And so, of course, as anyone would, Fran like freaks out, but her immediate thought is, they're not gonna get this. And she's talking about the necklace. So, like, she's quickly trying to like take it off, and she goes into the stall. And then when the gunfire ceases, she kind of pokes her head out, and you can see that she had put the necklace in her mouth,
Yep.
so that a little bit of it was trailing out. And again, this is where I consider the next part so short I included it, but she actually goes back out to the restaurant and you look around and there's people partially underneath one of the tables, like people just all over the place. And Tony's just nonchalantly sitting at their table. And she's like, Tony, what happened? And he says, like, Jimmy Inoki says hello,
Yeah.
something like that. And he kind of does it like Godfather style, with his mouth kind of like his cheeks kind of full. I don't know. Um, but yeah, before we move on,
Yeah.
would you have gone back out to the restaurant? Because I sure would
W-
not have.
Well, let me ask you, what was the alternative? Living in the bathroom?
Well, and that might be something regarding timing of the episode because it seems very quick. Like she doesn't wait too long in the bathroom after the noise dies down, right? I would
That's fair.
I would have been more cautious than what she appears to be, but again, that I don't know.
It could be a function of it's a 23-minute episode.
Exactly. Because
Um,
basically it's like gunfire goes into the stall and like 2 seconds later is out of the stall and going back into the restaurant.
Fair. Did you notice when she went into the bathroom that at least I think two of the guys followed her and kind of like
Yeah, just
peered
to
in?
yeah, kind of peered in, but she didn't notice
No, she did not. I would have
because
probably noticed the two big guys following me to the ladies' room
well,
because
it
to
was
me
a bit
that's
freaky
dangerous.
according to her, but again, it's just so interesting how oblivious she is until the restaurant shootout.
True. I mean, she's just, as you put it, she's ecstatic about the gift Tony gave her.
Mhm.
I mean, what would you think if on a first date a guy gave you a diamond? I mean, it's not an engagement ring, clearly, but still,
Yeah. But still, that's like a really big gift. Like I
I
don't know if
agree.
I feel comfortable accepting it.
I agree.
Especially like it's not like they previously know each other in any capacity, right? I feel
Right.
like it might be a little bit different if it's someone you know that you're like going out with on a first date versus like a total stranger. And they're
I
like, "Here, let me give you first of all this meat."
right. I
Second of
mean, for me,
all,
that would be a turn off right there.
yeah. But then second of all, like this really expensive necklace. Like, I don't know.
No,
I would not be comfortable with that.
I would be very confused.
Mhm.
Like, what do you think you're going to get from giving me this expensive gift? Because this is not a transactional thing here. Like,
Exactly. It feels like their expectations,
yes,
you know what I mean? So,
yes, and that would make me very uncomfortable.
yeah. Yep.
Um,
But yeah, I would also probably have tried to call the police or something in the with the phone
That would have
prior
been a
to
good
leaving
plan.
prior
That
to
would have
leaving.
been a good plan. I mean, I
But
know
again, we're 2020 people, or sorry, 2022 people with unfortunately a lot of terrible things that have happened.
how
So
bad is it that when you said 2020, I didn't immediately go, it's 2022. I was just like, yeah, of course we're 2020
time is
people.
made up.
Time has no meaning. It's great. Um, okay.
So yeah.
So
Was there anything else you wanted to add regarding that scene?
I'll save it for our shticks.
Okay. So take us to the bedroom.
So Fran's in bed and she's sort of, it's sort of unclear to me if she's, I think she's supposed to be asleep, but she doesn't really seem asleep. To me, it seems like she's in that like period, like where she's semi dozing, but sort of awake. Tony,
Mhm.
it'll never work out. I'm Jewish and you're a killer. Like,
Mhm.
um, and like she then wakes up because there's something in her bed and she pulls back the blanket and there's a horse head,
Mhm.
except it's not a actual dead horse head. It's one of those children's toys that has like the horse head on a pole that you like pretend to be riding.
Yep.
And she calls out like, Gracie, I told you to give this to charity. What's it doing in my bed? And then she gets this look on her face like, oh. Um, and so we see her in what she sleeps in apparently, and it's very different than what we've seen her in sleepwear wise before. I think it's worth mentioning. Do you?
Yeah.
She's
Mhm.
in, I think, a Queens College t-shirt, like a
Mhm.
large t-shirt. I don't know if I think she might have shorts, but it's sort of unclear. But like we've previously seen her in like a floor length negligee. So
Mhm.
this looks far more relaxed and her hair is in pigtails. Um, and Val comes in and she wants to, like, Fran had called her to, and it said, you know, you'll never believe, wait till you see what Tony gave me. And she's like, well, what did he give you? And so Fran eventually does show her the diamond solitaire. Um, but she's sort of trying to communicate to Val like things with Tony are not good. Like she needs things she needs to get out somehow.
Mhm.
And she starts trying to signal to Val without saying what she has learned. And she puts her finger on her nose and sort of like pushes it. And so
Mhm.
Val assumes that Fran is trying to communicate that Tony's a nose picker and starts
Mhm.
explaining how nose pickers are the worst. And like, let me guess, he does it when he's driving because, you know, guys in cars, like they think that no one can see them. And Fran just kind of looks at her and then says, oh, Val, I blame myself. Remember when I gave you your first Tony home perm? I wasn't supposed to leave it on for 4 hours. I just wanted to watch the Thornbirds. And then she finally comes out with it and says, Val, Tony's in the mob. And Val doesn't believe her. Fran, just because he's Italian doesn't mean he's in the mob. I mean, it's like saying just because you're Jewish, your mother drives you crazy and you eat when you're upset. And Fran
Mhm.
just kind of looks at her, oh, Val, what am I going to do? And she's like, Fran, I'm very offended. Just because I'm Italian doesn't mean I know everything about the mob. But if this Jamook is a cooch, it means he's got to whack a. I'm totally getting this wrong. And I'm so
That's
sorry to
okay.
all of our listeners. Um, he's got to whack a jadrul to become Cosa Nostra. You
Yep.
better tell Mr. Sheffield right away. And Fran's like, Val, I can't tell anyone. You know, anyone who knows is going to be in grave danger. And Val's like, well, you just told me. And she's like, Fran's like, I had to tell someone. But why would you put my life in danger? Well, you're my best friend. Oh, that's so sweet. Listen, Franny, you better break up with Tony right away. And Fran's like, Val, you can't just break up with guys like this. You got to move to Idaho and take on a Nordic name and never see your family again for the rest of your life. What do you think of Helga?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, do you want to add anything?
Nope.
All right. Would you like to take us to the kitchen?
Yeah, so we're in the kitchen and Maggie's at the counter. She has obviously been making some type of drink. Brighton walks in. Oh, slave. And she goes, oh, here's your orange yogurt smoothie.
What does she
And
call him?
young master or something,
Master Brighton.
Master Brighton. And and of course, Brighton's like, well, you better not have put anything in here because naturally I'm going to make you taste it first. And immediately Maggie pours both the cup and the remainder in the blender down the drain.
Yep.
And Brighton says, your will be broken, or you will be broken.
Yes.
Um, and again, he kind of goes off, and Fran comes in, and Maggie says to Fran, somebody's going to die. Who told you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
big gasp, very dramatic. And Maggie explains, you know, well, Brighton stole my diary. Oh, like that's not what she was thinking.
Right.
And basically, Maggie explains to Fran that Brighton said that he wouldn't show their dad if she was his personal slave for a week. And Fran, unthinkingly, I guess, kind of mentions, well, you could have gotten a month with page 26 alone, I'm guessing.
Right.
Fran has obviously also had a peek at the diary. And
Yep.
then Fran mentions, well, you could always get him back with the tape of him French kissing the Lisa Simpson doll. I don't have that. And then Fran like pulls out conveniently a
Mm-hmm.
VHS. Now you do. It's like, well, first of all, where did that VHS come from? Because did she anticipate this conversation, or does she just keep it in the kitchen?
Right.
But Maggie asks like, how? Oh, thank you. How did you know? And she's like, I'm a nanny. I knew you or Gracie would need it someday. So basically, Maggie is super happy, runs off with the VHS because now she has something to kind of get back on an even playing field.
Yep.
So then Fran takes a Twinkie and a straw and sticks the straw into the Twinkie.
It was a juice box straw, which is the
Yeah.
part that's so comical.
Yeah. But it's in the Twinkie.
Yep.
Niles walks in. Is there anything wrong? And she's like, oh, Niles, I wish I could tell you. And Niles immediately is like, oh, is it because you're involved, your involvement with the mobster, kind of relays a summary of that. Val told you? One Dove bar and she spilled like a cup of coffee. And so anyway, so Niles obviously knows what's going on. And then Fran tries to kind of rally, like, he's not the only one with muscle in the family. I've got relatives. I can have him taken care of. Killed? Audited.
Right.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add to that scene?
No, but I will say I'm very glad that you mentioned the Twinkie with the straw, because if you hadn't, I would have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So can you take us to the office?
Sure. So it's Cece and Maxwell in the office, and Cece is trying to calm Maxwell down, saying, "So we lost Whoopi. I'm sure the theater owner will let us out of our commitment. I'll just charm him." And Maxwell kind of looks at her and she says, "Okay, how about this? We'll just move up the next show." And Maxwell doesn't take well to that suggestion either. "Oh, we'll just move up the next show, the one for which we don't have a director, a set designer, or a tenor to sing the lead, which is why we moved it back in the first place." And this is one of those times where they're playing with the physical humor. Maxwell was sort of chasing her into I think he chases her into the chair, and she's backed up against the table. That's what it is. And she sort of has her like hand on the bottom of her, I think, suit jacket, and like towards her stomach. And she's like, "Oh, Maxwell, if you're going to get gruff with me, lock the door."
Mm-hmm.
And Niles comes in and distracts Maxwell, who backs off from Cece, and Cece sort of fanning herself with her hand, finding that exchange very stimulating, shall we say. And Niles says, "Mr. Sheffield, I must speak with you." And before he says anything of substance, he looks at Cece and says, "They make estrogen in a patch now." And she stops smiling, stops fanning herself, I think. And so anyway, Niles turns back to Maxwell and says that it has something to do with Miss Fine. Well, what is it? Maxwell's not particularly, interested. And Niles says, "I can't tell you, sir." anyone who knows could be in grave danger. Well, then why did you come? Why did you come in? To tell her, Niall says, pointing at Cece.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to remember what happened next.
Well, yeah, and well, Cece makes a snide remark to Niles about, she calls him Tennessee Tuxedo.
Yes,
She says she's going to leave to go find a tenor for the new show. Oh, wait. Niles
yes,
has a lovely singing voice.
that's it. Thank you. Because I have in my notes that Maxwell says, "Well, she got you that time, old man." And Niles responds, "Oh, I let her have that one, sir. She gets satisfaction from a man so infrequently."
And it's
Uh,
because oh, do you have
no,
what
go
the
ahead.
exchange was? Basically, she kind of acts as if, "Oh, Niles, like you have a lovely singing voice. Can you do a southern accent?" And he immediately says something with his
I can
southern
shake and bake,
accent.
and it's shake and bake, and I help, is
Yep.
what he
And then can
says.
you do a time step? And he does it. And then she goes, "Can you be more naive,
Correct.
sucker?" And then
Yep.
she leaves. Maxwell then says, "You let her have that," or like,
She
"She
got
really
you.
got you there. I let her have that. She gets satisfaction from a man so infrequently."
Right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so Niall starts to tell Maxwell about Miss Fine being intimidated by a certain gentleman, tall, dark, handsome. And of course, Maxwell immediately thinks it's him. What did I do?
Mhm.
And Niles, I think, does what everyone in the audience wants to and slaps Maxwell upside the head. "Oh, sorry, sir, it was a fly."
Mhm.
And um, so then he sort of comes out with it that Miss that Mr. Tony is not exactly Miss Fine's cup of tea. And Maxwell's sort of happy with and snarkily says, "Don't tell me Miss Fine is put off by a man who likes to say it in neat." And Niles says, "You're missing the point, sir. Miss Fine wants to break up with him, but she's afraid to because," and Maxwell jumps to the, I think, regular interaction, normal person assumption of she doesn't want to devastate the man, hurt his feelings, break his heart. "I'll do it for her." And he gets so giddy. He's
Oh,
so
yes.
happy to help her break this man's heart, hurt his
Mhm.
feelings, and devastate him. He gets this grin on his face. It's very similar to that time when he was like running across the house, like super excited to pop Miss Fine's bubble. Um, anyway, do you want to add anything else?
Nope.
All right, would you like to take us to the living room or the
Yes.
foyer slash living room?
Yes. So Fran's kind of trying to practice what she would say to Tony to break up. Doorbell rings and she notes to herself, as she's saying her lines, that she'd be dead before she finished. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and she's trying to psych herself up, hang tough, all that stuff. She opens the door. Immediately, Tony says, "Baby, give me a kiss." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of sweeps her into like she's he's the dramatic romantic, like kind of like she's I I can't think how to say it.
So like it's like he's sweeping her off her feet. It's reminiscent of that very famous photo in
Yes.
Times Square at the end of World War II. Like he's dipping her.
Mhm.
Continue.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
So, but it's relatively a quick kiss. Dramatic but quick. And Fran starts by saying, she doesn't think.
Well, so she pulls away from him, right?
Yeah. And he's kind of like, because he starts talking about, usually when I say jump, people say how high.
Right,
Because she
because
starts by saying she doesn't think she can go with him. And he's just
right.
very confused. Like, usually when I say jump, they say how high. Okay. And she starts kind of jumping and like,
Mm-hmm.
and
In
she's like, I
place.
don't think, like, I don't think it, because of the kids. And I had a big sandwich because they were going to go out to eat.
Right.
And then Maxwell comes in and Fran tries to kind of tell Maxwell, if he says jump, jump.
Right.
Uh, and, Maxwell says he wants a word with Tony. But at that time, we see Gracie is there. I think,
Maxwell's
mm,
handing her her
yeah,
violin
but
case.
I'm trying to think, is Frankie there with her then, or
I don't
no? Is
think
it
so,
just
no.
Gracie? Yeah,
Just
so he
Gracie.
wants a word, and Maxwell then hands Gracie her violin case, but in such a way that Tony interprets it as if it were a
Something
case
else?
for a weapon.
Yeah.
And as he's doing that as well, and Tony kind of like backs up a little, like a word, and then Maxwell's trying to encourage Gracie by saying, "Take a shot at Puccini." Oh, we're a tough family. My son's, Frankie's not getting his until he gets confirmed. Again, thinking that Maxwell gave Gracie a machine gun.
Correct.
But then Tony realizes, oh, there was a violin in that case. And Max is like, yeah, what did you think? A machine gun? That I was packing heat? And Fran's like trying to like get Maxwell to stop talking. And she like has a finger on her nose again, the same gesture she did to Val earlier.
Right.
And Maxwell's not getting it. Oh,
Nope.
Miss Fine, do you need a Kleenex? That's not very attractive. You, you might not need me to break up. If you're wanting to break up with him, you might not need me to do it.
You keep that up and you won't need me.
Yes.
Right.
And then and of course, Tony hears this. What? Like, is there something going on between you and this Pierce Bronston? He says
Yep.
Bronston instead of Brosnan. But anyway, um, and Fran, of course, kind of turns to Niles. Is like, Niles, go call an ambulance. And again, Maxwell's still like oblivious to like the stakes, I guess, of this
Yeah.
interaction.
He doesn't know who he's interacting with.
hmm And but because again, he's saying that, Maxwell's trying to say, yeah, she's not wanting to be. Tony says, I do not like where this is going. And Fran says, I take it all back, and starts jumping again in place.
And she asks him, what does she ask him?
Uh, what does she ask him?
Where do you want to live?
Oh, yes, yes. Um, anyway, so Cece comes in and she goes, what's going on here? Niles told me to come out here and stand in front of Maxwell.
Yep.
Because how they were standing is that Tony was closest to the door, then it was Maxwell, and then Fran. So now Cece is in front of Maxwell, so in between Maxwell and Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And again, she's also kind of oblivious to the stakes of the situation.
Yep.
And he tells Maxwell that she was able to cast Mandy Patinkin for the show. And then that's when Tony realizes, wait, you're Maxwell Sheffield, the Broadway producer? And then he starts singing. And Cece's like, we actually need a tenor. So then he kind of changes the tone and continues singing. And and again, then it comes up, oh, how would you feel about being an understudy for Mandy Patinkin? And again, this is kind of flashing back to whenever Fran was describing Tony, and she mentioned that he loved musical theater. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but but then of course Maxwell is framing it in such a way that, well, if you didn't spend all your time with Miss Fine, maybe you could be an understudy. And Fran at first is like, he's not gonna pick to be an understudy over me. But immediately, like Tony's like, whoa, like let's talk about this. And
Actually, he says, stay out of this, baby. Where do
yeah,
I side?
yes. And so he and Cece, well, they kind of link arms, and Cece's taking him off to again go sign something. And you know, Maxwell turns to Fran like, you're a beautiful woman, like trying to encourage her, and he goes on to say, don't chase men, find a way to make men chase you. All right, I'll give it a shot. He's in the mob. It's fine. And then he goes running after her, and we quickly see a scene where Tony and Cece are in the office going over the contract, and Tony's saying, "I don't do no nudity." And we see out in the patio window, like Fran and Maxwell doing their Tom and Jerry bit.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to that scene?
The only thing I want to add is that after Fran says, "Okay, I take it all back. Where do you want to live?" and is back to jumping up and down,
Hmm.
Maxwell tries to like step in again and says, "Now look here, she doesn't want to see you anymore, and that's that." And Tony doesn't get it at first. He's like, "What? Are the boys doing some kind of blooper thing for my birthday?"
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
Speaking of bloopers,
Exactly. We have bloopers at the end. I think it's the credit scene, and it's from when Fran was trying to ask to take time off. She couldn't get the line right about how she can't wait until the natural look is out because she has to gel and mousse and pluck and blend, and she couldn't get the
that
phrasing exactly
water,
right
yeah.
multiple times.
To the point where she's kind of like screaming at the to herself, frustrated.
Yeah. It isn't actually an interesting thing because her makeup does look a little bit more natural, and as does her hair in this episode.
Hmm.
So, and I
But
think that's the
still
episode.
not, but still not what one would call a natural look.
No, no, not really. Um, and I think then that makes the episode.
Hmm. Yes.
Is there anything you want to talk about before we jump into our shticks?
Um, I don't think so. I think I kind of brought up some of the stuff. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before the shticks?
Nope, I'm ready to jump into our favorite fashions.
Okay. So I like the dress she was in, that black dress.
Me too.
I mean, I couldn't pull it off, but she looks great.
I'm sure you could.
uh,
Um, I would want it a little bit higher cut.
oh yes, it was very low cut.
Yeah. Um,
And
which
probably
explain.
don't wear it in December in New York. Like
Yeah,
maybe a different season, a warmer
yeah,
climate.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure if someone were to actually wear something like that in New York in December, they probably wouldn't get frostbitten, but they'd be very, very cold.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, is there other? Is there any other fashion you want to talk about?
So there was actually, I don't have it written down, so I don't have like a specific um description for it, but one of Cece's earlier outfits in the episode looked very good on her.
Oh dear, I didn't take note at all of what Cece wore in this episode.
Yeah. So I don't have a great description. It's not the later outfit, it's an earlier outfit, but like the cut of the bodice like area like was nice. Anyway,
Mhm.
like it was just a very flattering look. Um I don't know if I liked the color, but like the cut was nice. So, did you have any other favorite fashion or
Not
fashion
favorite
you want to
fashion,
talk about?
but I guess it's worth noting Fran's very brightly colored blazer in the last scene. You know, it's horizontal stripe with has thin, like light colored stripes, and then thick, bright stripes like red and like orange, I think, and a little bit of blue. It's very loud.
Hmm.
Not something I would wear. She looks great in it, and it's totally inappropriate, like totally the nanny. Um, but yeah, I just thought it was notable.
Hmm.
Is there other fashion you want to talk about?
Um, so I was not really a fan of Maggie's outfits in this one.
No.
There's like more of this satiny,
Yeah.
like very shiny. Um, I don't know, just the different combination wasn't a big fan.
What about what Gracie was wearing in the first scene?
Wasn't she wearing kind of like a
Sort of like a velvet pinafore.
mhm. I
Yeah.
didn't take too much note of it.
It's dark colored.
It seemed kind of seasonally, like because surrounded by all the Christmas decorations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, did you have a particular thought on it?
I mean, it looked like dresses I had as a kid.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
So that was my only
Taking
comment.
you back.
Exactly. It was taking me back to the good old days.
Hmm.
Then I'm out.
Okay.
And
So then, notable New Yorkers.
there were a bunch this time.
There were, including the title of the episode.
Correct. Would you like to start there?
Yes, because the title of the episode is An Offer She Can't Refuse. Isn't it from The Godfather? I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
I mean, I've never seen The Godfather, but I believe that's right.
I haven't either.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. But it's also the title of a book by Emma Darcy. Yeah, if you Google An Offer She Can't Refuse, The Nanny is actually like the fourth result.
It's the Godfather.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's Marlon Brando who says, "I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse." Yep. So yeah, and obviously, as we were talking about this episode through the various scenes, there's various references to the Godfather.
Yes. The horse head in the bed,
Yes.
for example.
How Tony kind of talks to Fran after the shootout.
Jimmy Nucci said hello.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to add a little bit to the horse head in the bed. So according to our friends at schmoop.com, and I quote, in the years since The Godfather debuted, putting a horse's head in someone's bed has become a widely known meme of sorts, shorthand for making someone an offer they can't refuse or forcing them to give you something they don't want to give you, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. So you already mentioned that the bad music Gracie was playing was Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's that whole conversation about Billy Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Have we had him come up before?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Joel, an American composer, singer, songwriter, and pianist who's nicknamed the Piano Man. He divorced from Christy Brinkley in 1994, which is the reference to he's recently divorced. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm. Now, so I didn't know if this was a direct reference whenever Tony refers to his son as Cheech, because I know there's an actor named Cheech Marin, but I don't know if there was any connection.
So according to godfather.fandom.com, Willie Chichi Chichi is the Corleone wise guy.
Ah, okay.
So I think that's the reference.
Gotcha.
I think we're sort of the blind leading the blind here.
We
Sorry.
think it's another Godfather reference.
We do. I was also trying to figure out.
It's a Godfather reference. We have Whoopi Goldberg.
We talked about her previously, but she's an American actor, author, comedian, and television personality. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Sandy Duncan.
An American actress, comedian, singer, and dancer known for her role in the revival of Peter Pan on Broadway.
Valerie Harper.
Yes, and so those two go together. So Sandy Duncan joined the cast of Valerie's Family, which used to be known as Valerie, in 1987. The show was then later retitled The Hogan Family, after Valerie Harper was dismissed from the sitcom. Valerie Harper was an American actress who started her career on Broadway, but she's best known for her role on the Mary Tyler Moore Show and the show Rhoda as the character Rhoda Morganson. And she left the show Valerie due to salary reasons. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Um, Now I have no idea if any of the meat stuff has anything to do, but I know when she says sirloin, T-bone, flank, oh my, that reminds me of lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
I think that was the reference.
Hmm. Um, Again, whenever they go and they're talking about the Beauty and the Beast, I'm assuming Broadway version,
Yep, that was my assumption as well.
because again, he's a fan of musical theater. And I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory about the
Mhm.
Broadway version of it.
Right,
Uh,
it opened in 1994 on
oh, okay.
Broadway, according
Hmm.
to our friends at Wikipedia.
Hmm. Um, and then let's see here.
You missed one before,
What
Barbie.
was it? Oh, well, yeah.
Barbie.
That's like
She's
so, yeah. That's like one of those, like, it's so, I'm
she's so
curious if
ubiquitous.
anybody, yeah, I'm curious if anybody outside of the US listens, whether or not Barbie is as ubiquitous where you're from
That's
as
a
it is.
great question.
Because have you seen they're making a live action version of Barbie?
I did hear that.
Mm-hmm. That'll be interesting. And then so they mentioned specifically a certain type of like perm, the
Yes,
Tony.
the Tony Home Permanent. It
Mm-hmm.
was a permanent wave kit, and actually, the National Museum of American History has one in its possession, but it's not on display. That's
Really?
according to our friends at americanhistory.si.edu.
Okay. The Thornbirds.
A miniseries airing in 1983 that became the second highest rated miniseries. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm. Was it Australian?
Oh, now you're asking a question I don't know the answer to.
Because I think like
It was an
because I
American television
yeah.
miniseries.
Yeah, but I think it based off of like a book. Yep. In the arid 1920s Australian outback, a Catholic priest and the beautiful niece of a vast sheep station owner stand powerless before God's will. That's the beginnings of the IMDb summary.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think it was like based off of a book. Anyway, um, I honestly don't know when Val has her whole like, but if the Jarnook is a chooch.
I
Well,
honestly didn't look into that.
okay, I have no idea about about that whole situation. Lisa Simpson doll.
I think it's a reference to Lisa Simpson, the middle child of the Simpson family on the television show The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm. And
Tennessee Tuxedo,
yep.
an animated series from the 1960s, which was about a penguin. Um, and apparently, there were new episodes that were created for YouTube in 2014.
Oh, interesting.
That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Now
Um,
I didn't write down what Niall said in a southern accent. Was that
I
a reference?
did. It
Okay.
was. He said, "It's shake and bake, and I helped." It is a line from a commercial for Shake and Bake. But when I say a commercial, I think it was actually multiple commercials over a period of time.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it's a commercial with a little girl who wants to help. I think it's her grandmother or her mother cook. And then at dinner, they're saying, "Oh, how wonderful this fried chicken is! Oh, it's not fried; it's baked. It's baked." And the little girl says, "It's shake and bake, and I helped."
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And
Yeah.
what's funny actually about asking Daniel Davis if he can do a Southern accent, he was born in the South, so his
Yep.
British accent is fake.
Yep. Yep. That's what I thought of during that scene. Now Tony mispronounces because I'm assuming he's actually referring to Pierce Brosnan,
That was my assumption as well.
but he says like Bronston or something like that
Yes,
when
he
he
did.
says it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I first came across Pierce Brosnan as 007 in the
That is
'90s.
That is what he's most known for.
Mhm. But he's been in plenty of other things. Like he was in Mamma Mia, right?
Oh, keep asking questions I don't know the answer to.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't know everything in the world. I just need to
He
make peace
was
with that.
he was in Mamma Mia. I
Okay.
haven't seen that either, but I just know references sometimes. But yeah, I primarily know him from as 007.
Right.
And he does like have like some similarities to Maxwell Sheffield in terms of looks.
Dark hair,
Mhm.
full head of
And
hair.
accent.
Yep.
um and then so I thought it was interesting when Tony asked if this was a blooper thing,
Hmm.
cuz like my mind immediately went to like the 2000s where they had uh Ashton Kutcher's show, but I'm thinking they're actually referring to Candid Camera. Smile, you're on Camera. That
Hmm.
seems more 90s.
That does.
So, and Mandy Patinkin, he was
We talked
referenced
about him like a
really
week or two
recently.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So nothing's really changed with his information.
Correct.
I still, again, primarily know him from The Princess Bride and Criminal Minds.
Exactly.
Now, I didn't catch which songs Tony was singing. Did you?
I did not.
I'm assuming some type of Broadway song.
Yeah.
Um,
I think he was singing from Carousel, uh, If I Loved You,
okay.
because I mean he starts by saying, If I loved you.
Hmm.
And when I Google it in quotes, Carousel comes up.
Okay.
I didn't catch the second one though.
Yeah. Uh, did you have any others?
The Cement Mary Janes.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out if that was also a Godfather reference, but I don't think it was. I do think it was another reference to the mob
Mm-hmm.
as a form of murder.
Yes.
Um, I'm treading lightly, treading lightly. Um, the only other one I think you missed was the reference to a Dove bar, which is an ice cream. Yum.
Mhm. Okay.
Oh, I take it back. I totally take it back. Burke Moses. He's the guy who played Tony Tottori.
Who is Burke Moses?
He is an actor who, since he was on The Nanny, he was on the show Younger. He was on One Life to Live, Chicago PD. Um, Before The Nanny, he was on All My Children, Guiding Light, As the World Turns.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that's according to our friends at IMDb. But we all know him from The Nanny,
Of course.
obviously.
I do now.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, any Yiddish cop this week?
So the only thing I noted was, in Fran's bedroom, Val makes the comment about like it's just because he's Italian, that's like me saying just because you're Jewish, your mother drives you crazy and you eat when you're upset. Um, not touching the first part of that with a 10-foot broomstick, but
Mhm.
for the second half about Jews eating when they're upset, there is something to that. But it's not just when we're upset, it's when we're feeling emotions. Like a lot of life cycle events, good and bad, come with food.
Right.
Like when someone has a baby, there's either a baby naming or a bris. There's food afterwards. There's a celebratory meal. On our holidays, except the ones where we're fasting, there's food.
Mhm.
When someone dies, and people pay Shiva calls or are sitting Shiva, people bring food. Um,
Mhm.
so like we eat when we're happy, we eat when we're upset. It's food sort of like the great equalizer. Everyone sort of takes comfort from it. And I think we rely on that a lot. So
Interesting.
yeah, that's all I had, unless there was some Yiddish that I totally missed, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Excellent.
Um,
Would you like to take us to 90s nostalgia?
yeah, so there was actually quite a bit.
I know.
I'll go ahead again with the bathroom scene, the disposable camera and the payphone.
Yes.
Now, I think it's interesting that there was one in the bathroom,
That was my question for you.
whether that was a thing or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't recall in the bathroom.
I don't
Obviously,
either.
I do remember payphones, but they're
Right?
usually more in a like a more of a public space.
Right. It
So
seems like
that's
a
a
weird place to have it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Um,
All the
I don't know if that was just a convenience thing.
I think
Like,
so.
because did she know when she went to go quote unquote powder her nose, which actually turned out to be taking a picture with a disposable camera in the mirror quickly, and then calling Val, that did she know that that restaurant happened to just have a payphone in the bathroom? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I thought she went to take the picture of herself because she was so excited.
Hmm.
Um, to me, it just seems like such a weird place to put a payphone. Like I also am old enough to remember payphones.
Yeah.
Um, but like all the noises one could pick up
Yeah. It's not
seems
like the best place.
exactly. Um, I'm glad we were able to communicate that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
On the note of phones, I'll point out that Fran was using the cordless phone to not listen to her mother while
Mm-hmm.
Gracie and Frankie were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the tape using the disposable camera. To me, there's something, I don't want to say sort of timeless, but something very modern about her doing that at all. Because I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
we do that now with our cell phones. People take selfies in bathroom mirrors all the time,
Yes.
whether they should or not. I'm not commenting, but they do.
Yes. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
Um, Obviously the VHS that Fran has prepared for blackmailing purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That again today would be just a clip on your phone that you know,
Yeah.
quickly did.
Yeah. Also, just think about like she clearly caught Brighton doing it. And then she
Hmm.
had the presence of mind, I'm using that term loosely, to go get the VHS camera, tape him, and hold on to the tape.
Yep. And somehow magically
Had
summon
it in
it.
the kitchen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, the Twinkie. Weren't
Yeah.
Twinkies discontinued about 10 years ago? I think they came back, but for a while they were discontinued.
Hmm. I did not know that. I've never been a Twinkie fan, so I
I
never.
honestly can't tell you if I ever had one.
Yeah.
I know what they are, but
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I mean,
oh, so I'm just gonna let's see. So I'm just gonna read to you just on the Twinkie point from our friends at eatthis.com. And I quote, now 8 years after a 4-year hiatus, Twinkies are back and better than ever.
oh, okay.
End
Gotcha.
quote. So
So part of the thing too, and I've mentioned this previously, I think nowadays Fran would probably have done like a Google search or like a social media search of
uh-huh.
Tony before actually going on the date, and she might have picked up a little bit more, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. She seemed pretty oblivious until
Yep.
blatantly confronted with it.
Yep. So yeah.
Old
Anything
cars.
else? Oh
Old
yeah.
cars. We have to mention that.
Yep.
Um, I think the only other thing I want to talk about, which isn't really 90s nostalgia, um, on their date, um, Fran says to him, tell me about yourself. What do you like to do, besides all the things she lists. And his comment is, it's not important what I do, it matters who I am. Who are you? It's not important who I am, it's important who I am with. Like, if you were on a date and someone said that to you, what would you be as easily distracted by a pretty box with a diamond in it?
Nope, red flags.
Yeah, thank you. That's sort of what I was getting at. But she like doesn't seem to notice that and totally ignores it because he put something shiny under her nose.
And again, you and I both agreed first date with a total stranger, not going to be super comfortable with a very expensive gift.
I kind of feel like any gift beyond like, I don't know, flowers, maybe candy, right? Like that to me is like within the realm of reason. Anything beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah. Unless of course you have some other type of history.
Right. But like again, perfect stranger.
Yep. Yep.
We should be careful, otherwise our podcast is going to be a dating advice podcast. Don't do this. Watch out for that.
Yep. So then, anything else for 90s nostalgia?
I'm out.
Okay, future fun.
So I'm just going to give one high level comment that this is not the only man who dates Fran and ends up getting tied up in one of Maxwell's shows with disastrous results. We never see Tony Tottori again.
I figured.
Yeah, I know. But like we sort of can imagine the disastrous results that would come from Maxwell hiring someone he hasn't background checked to be an understudy in one of his shows. Yeah, the time I'm thinking of, in the Cantor show, I'm trying to see, which is later this season actually. Fran starts dating her parents' synagogue's cantor, and he ends up starting as the understudy in one of Maxwell's plays, and then the lead actually gets hit by a bus and is dead.
Oh no.
There's actually a really funny scene with Cece regarding that. Anyway, so they end up hiring Gary, that's the cantor's name, to be the lead in the show, but he never signs his contract, and he instead it doesn't end well. I don't want to spoil that entire episode. It just doesn't end well for anybody. So Maxwell should learn, he doesn't, that letting Miss Fine interfere with his business, it's a bad plan. Hiring someone from Miss Fine, like on Fran's recommendation, not a good plan. Not a good plan. The only other future fun I'll comment on, just because I've thought about it now. In season 6, Fran and Niles pretend to be Maxwell and Cece, and they end up getting Maxwell Sheffield Productions fined, I think it's $500,000 or $250,000. So getting involved, having Fran involved in his business is a poor choice all around.
Yeah.
So
not surprised.
Yeah. I know. I think it's then time to rate the episode.
Yep. And it's your turn this week to go first.
That's actually fine. I normally say I hate it, but I'm giving this a 5. I thoroughly enjoy this episode. I've watched it innumerable times. I find it amusing how Fran is so like besotted by this guy, and then like when she figures out why he's giving her all these expensive gifts and like what's going on, she's like afraid to break up with him, and Maxwell has to be her knight in shining armor. And I like the running jokes that she just does not catch. Although it occurs to me that I'll point out that when we first meet Tony, Fran asks him, "What does your wife call you?" And he says, "I'm divorced." So I'm not quite sure why she was so afraid he was going to kill her, since obviously he had divorced Frankie's mother.
Unless it's a euphemism.
Oh, okay, fair. Had not thought of that. Okay, never mind. I rescind that comment, but I'm still giving it a 5 because I enjoyed this episode immensely. All right, I'm done.
Yes. So I wasn't like super enamored with like the side plot with Brighton and Maggie.
Mhm.
But regardless, I am also giving this a 5 because I was literally laughing out loud in the last scene when Maxwell's just again oblivious to the stakes and like the whole handing over the violin case, just all of that. It was great. Um,
Mhm.
so yes, I am also giving it a 5 because I did enjoy it.
I am so glad. I think this season we're very much in sync for a lot of
Mhm.
the episodes. So
Yep.
it'll be fun for our season wrap up to see how close we are.
Yep. So anything else you wanted to discuss before we sign off for today?
I think I'm good. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
All right. That's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 62, Fashion Show.
If you would like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.